Helps if I remember to take the lens cap off. Hello and welcome to Plugin Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. Last time on Plugin Along, we continued responding to a question in chat. Why is adding currencies to TitanBar so difficult, and can we improve the process? Last stream we were derailed by a bug that I found, and while I did find the seeming cause of the bug after this stream, that is, you make the change, the bug happens, you don't make the change, the bug doesn't happen, I still don't actually know why it's a problem. It's specifically one file, I think the Motes of Enchantment, Motes of Enchantment currency files. When I moved them into the subdirectory, everything broke, and I don't know why that is. It doesn't really matter. In the long term, those files are supposed to disappear entirely, so I don't really care where they sit right now. But it's a very strange issue to run across. There was also another bug that we were seeing that I'd sort of like to do the same thing that I should have done last stream, which is use source control to go backwards in time to figure out what change introduced the bug. And if we can figure out what exactly causes it, so that we can look out for that as we go. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to dig into bug tracking or bug detection with source control rather than just poking at the code, and we'll see how that goes. As always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions, either about plugin development or even just LOTRO in general. We're here to have a good time with LOTRO. Alright, so I am here in Helm's Deep. I'm at the bottom of Helm's Deep, so I am going to move to a higher surface. I like being away from the ground a little bit. So we're going to ride on up here. If you play around with the epic battles at Helm's Deep, you can start getting very familiar with running back and forth in these areas. But it's actually a little bit of a handicap, because if you run in the smaller groups, then there'll be arbitrary blockades that stop you from moving too far away from where the epic battle is taking place. And so the epic battle for the Hornsburg, I think you just can't really go much further in this direction. But that's okay. We're up here. Theoden King stands over there in front of the Hornsburg. And we'll just, I don't know, stand on this big ballista. Perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch to sharing my desktop, and we'll be all set. So what is the problem? Actually, replicating the problem that we want to figure out the cause of is the first step. What are the steps that we need to figure out what's going, or to be able to see it in action? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and load up TitanBar here. And, okay, TitanBar is loaded. One thing I'm seeing is that I thought I had settings for more of the wallet items on the bar there saved off, but that's okay. We're going to play around with this. So these are destiny points. Let's go ahead and put something on there like ancient script. We're going to show that on TitanBar. Okay, and this is perfect. We can demonstrate, well, all problem here. I'm going to move the actual currency thing over. So ancient script is able to move itself too high, relatively to where the bar is. And now that it's on here, if we go ahead and reload TitanBar, when it loads back up, we're going to see it in place and with the currency. Oh, no, we're not. I can drag it back down. All right, let's reload it now. Okay, so it's in the right place. I can't drag it too far up or down anymore. Awesome. Now, if we get rid of ancient script here, and don't show, and go ahead and reload that, and do it all over again, can we replicate this? So, ancient script on TitanBar. We can see there's a problem. It's not quite where it needs to be, and the currency is not where it needs to be, or quite possibly the currency is too high or too low for us to see it. So we can drag this around. Something weird's going on. Okay, so we can replicate this. The true replication is unload everything, come into our plugin data directory and just delete everything. So we're going to come on in to plugin data, and we're just going to blow that away. Then we're going to reload TitanBar. Okay. Now, I should double check that TitanBar hasn't had some sort of a massive update in the last week that will throw me off. 135.30. Perfect. Okay. So, we're going to go ahead and remove a couple of things here. Okay. We've got the wallet icon here. Money is fine, but it takes up a lot of space. So I'm actually going to say in tooltip. Great. And that's funny. It didn't disappear from there. All right. We'll put a pin in it. And I put a pin in it, I mean write it down. When moving money to tooltip, it stayed behind on bar as well until reload. Cool. So, what we've got here is kind of the bare bones. This is what it looks like. And so we're going to go ahead and unload TitanBar, and we want to save this off somewhere. So I just have a plugin along thing. We're going to go ahead and make something. All right. And this is nothing has been on bar except for money. Perfect. And we're going to just move that on over. So if I load up TitanBar, why on earth did I close my plugin manager? Load up TitanBar. We should see it reset back to just the way it was with a couple of things over here on the left. Cool. And if we go ahead and copy this over now, we're going to see just like we expected, with money, with the wallet and the money and tooltip in the middle. Okay, so to replicate what we just saw, if we go to Ancient Script and say on TitanBar, we can see it's not doing quite what we saw before, except when you click it and start dragging it, it is doing something weird. And you can sort of wiggle it back and forth in a way that it really shouldn't be. And then when we reload this, and the currency and the actual amount of the currency isn't there, then we reload, and it's more centered, better centered. I can't drag it up and down, and it has the currency. So what I want to do is step backwards through all of this mess of changes that I've made. And again, we're going to go ahead and reset the plugin data there. So we're going to step backwards through time so that we can figure out when did this first get introduced and what's up with that. And Ancient Script might not be a great one to start with because we really want to match up the one we're testing with the earliest changes that we can do. So, okay, what are we looking at? This is where we brought in the 13530 changes. Great. That was just to-do file changes. This was an initialization of money icons. I want to go out on a limb here and say not related to this specific problem. Awesome. A get ignore file. That's great. There was a stash here. That's fascinating. Oh yes, testing the file move issue. Okay, that's fair. Moved wallet controls into their own directory. So let's go ahead and notice that we have a bunch of local changes. All right, so we're going to go ahead and stash changes from last week. Sure. That's not a very helpful message, but it'll do. So we're going to go backwards in time, and we're going to go ahead and load TitanBar. Now, what we should expect to see is that this bug does not occur. So we're going to go ahead and get Ancient Script showed on TitanBar. We can see it shows up. It is centered, none of that vertical stuff, and the text box is there. Perfect. So we're going to go ahead and reset our plugin data now that the plugin is unloaded. And we want to start stepping forward in time to where we think something might trigger this behavior. All right, moving wallet controls in their own directory, that sure sounds like it could be a thing. So let's go ahead and load TitanBar. And now, the icons missing from the money tooltip, this is actually a bug that I've fixed over the last couple of weeks. So the fact that those icons are not showing up, that has been that way for some amount of time. And we're not going to worry about that right now. Okay, so ancient script, we're going to say TitanBar. Okay, good. The actual moving of these files around did not, in and of itself, cause the problem that we're seeing. Great. Reset. Get rid of that save file, bring in the backup. Now, we could, if we wanted to, actually emulate this process by, if we were working in a live directory and not doing the stepping through time thing, we could just comment out the part of the code that says actually save the file out. So that we load in the file, we make changes in memory, and then we just forget about it each time we reload the plugin. But because we're stepping forward and backwards through time, it's a little bit trickier to do that. It would probably work, but I don't want to mess with active changes in the local directory. All right, removing unused control file. I don't think that's relevant, so I'm going to skip it for right now. Moved comments of code collapsing works correctly. Don't think it's relevant. I'm not going to worry about it right now. Took first step in parameterizing global variables. Awesome. Where did we really get started here? Well, mostly with wallet, it looks like. So let's go to, yeah, settings is a great place. Let's pop this open. Okay, so we added those background positions. Now, the position thing, it feels like it's got to be related because we're seeing an issue with positioning. However, the specific thing that we're seeing is for wallet, and so we'll need a few more changes to really narrow in on it. Parameterized money settings, Destiny. Cool. Destiny is where we is a great one. Let's go ahead and verify that we can see the problem with Destiny before we move forward through time. So on TitanBar, no problem. Great. So we're going to unload that. We're going to go back to the save file. And we're going to go forward to parameterized Destiny settings. And we're going to go ahead and load and see what we did wrong, if anything. Okay, so once again, we're coming back in to Destiny points, showing on and fantastic. This was before I realized I was going to need this. I want to say it's in settings. I have a change. Let's come on in here to TitanBar settings and go look at the history of that. Because I made a change at some point to place these things in the global namespace. And let's see. Where is it? All right, we'll go into the blame instead. Okay, so this was fixed. There we go. Fixed a few items that threw an error. That's the one I was really looking for. So in settings, we needed some of these to be in the global namespace. That's fine. We can do that. Okay, so what are we looking at here? We are looking at, let's go ahead and get that open. We're going to go ahead and update the show on line 11. Wrong window. Okay, we also need background, position, position W, and where. Okay. Background, position, position W, and where. Cool. I will go ahead and add note on G. Cool. So that's should be enough to fix the loading of this. And we do see Destiny up there. Awesome. But what we want to do is go ahead and restore our plugin data files, because we know that's an important part of reproducing this. Don't move it, copy it. That's an important part of reproducing this, because if something is already on the bar, we've seen that on a reload, it's okay. It's really in that first step of putting on here that something has gone wrong. But we can see we haven't hit that point yet. Awesome. So, reset the plugin files and move further through time. I'm going to go ahead and close some of that. What else was... Yeah, that's fine. That's fine, don't care about those. Okay, cool. So, moving further forward in time, we parameterized the Destiny settings. Oh, you know, what we didn't do is verify that this problem does occur on Destiny. So let's move all the way forward. Hilarious. Yes, I do need to fix that. Where was I? Parameterized Destiny. Yeah, abort that, please. Thank you. Okay, so stash that. Parameter Destiny settings changes. Yes, we're just going to stash that. Duke says, hi, hello, and welcome to us muddling with the source code for the TitanBar plugin for Lord of the Rings Online, which is technically playing in the background here, but who needs that? Okay, so we are ready to step forward in time all the way to present in our source control, and then come back in and load the plugin. Now we have our fixed, our default plugin data files. So we're going to come on in here and make sure, Destiny does exhibit the problem that we're trying to show. Okay, we can see Destiny does exhibit the problem. When it shows up, the currency, the amount of the currency isn't present. We can drag it around and make it kind of flip above the axis so it kind of hides itself. Great. We can replicate the problem with Destiny. It doesn't have to be Destiny, but Destiny was one of the first ones that we did changes on, so great. So, parameterized Destiny settings didn't have this problem. We're going to come back in here and reapply those global settings that we need. Dick says that they were among the early people to play Lord of the Rings Online all those years ago. Yes, we just had the 17th, I think, anniversary of Lord of the Rings Online being live. You say you need to dust off your account. It's been a long while. Absolutely. As you may remember this from your time of playing, but every year that your account has been around, it accumulates some extra rewards. So my account's been around since those early years as well. So when I log in, each of my characters gets an 11Zs emote from the 11th anniversary, 11Zs, for instance, and lots of different fireworks and other little rewards. So every new character gets those kinds of things. At some point recently, SSG has said that you need to actively log in once a year to kind of tick the box up. But for a while, it was just sort of passively accumulating. So definitely, if you can find your username and password, if you have access to the email address that was associated with that account, I would encourage you to make sure it's still around. Every once in a while, every few years, LOTRO puts out a code for people that they can put in and get access to some of the older content for free on their account. If you're at all tempted to play probably the best Lord of the Rings themed MMO that's out there, then I would definitely encourage you to get those things, make sure they work. If you haven't played in 10 years, maybe it's time to update that password to something a little bit longer, a little bit stronger than was normal 10 years ago. That kind of thing, yeah. Even if you're not going to play today, you can take these steps to make sure that the account is still there and is secure for the near future. Awesome. Okay, let's step forward in time and see if we can tell when stuff breaks. Simplified variable initialization for parameterized variables. That sure seems like a great place for things to break. So we're going to step forward in time. Really? I really feel like that shouldn't be a problem. But we're going to go ahead and move forward. Oh, it's in settings. That's the problem. And we're going to go ahead and reapply these changes. Okay, I'm going to pull that on off. Okay, so the changes were made all on lines 11 to 25. No problems. Yeah, there were definitely some other ones. Okay. Cool. So let's go ahead and grab that delta there and come on into source control here. Cool. All right, so this is hopefully enough to cause the problem to resurface, because I'd really love to not step through a whole bunch of history trying to isolate where the problem is. Although you could do a binary search, sure. We're going to go ahead and say onto dip. Oh, it actually is fine. I was really expecting that to be the problem. Okay, this is why we test things. So, parameterized shard, simplified initialization, parameterized a bunch of other things. None of these affect destiny. So I think it's going to be safe to go ahead and move forward to 25 April. You're killing me. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. Move forward to 25 April. And then, can I apply this, please? Pretty please. I cannot, but I can do a three-way merge. Who doesn't love a good three-way merge? Okay, so we're going to take from there, we're going to take from there, and the rest of it we are going to take from here. And any other conflicts? No. Great. Okay, three-way merges can be a lot more complicated, but in a situation like this where we don't actually care about any of the changes because we're going to throw them all away when we're done, navigating through time here, we can be really loosey-goosey with this. And we can verify that the only changes to settings are the ones that I wanted to be there, which is just throwing these into the global table, so we're good. Probably should have had the plugin unloaded for that, but it's fine. Okay, so we're back in here. We can see and by we I mean I forgot to go ahead and reset that save file, coming back on in. Okay, coming on in here, we are going to, there's Destiny, right? We're going to show that on TitanBar. Still not a problem. Okay, well that's nice. It's, I was hoping not to break things early on. Turns out I don't think I did break that thing early on. Okay, so simplified variable initialization for parameterized variables. That is in fact not where I am. I'm going to delete that stash. Okay, used a loop instead of manually initializing the variables for each currency. Sure, that could definitely have caused a problem. So what we're going to do is see if, can we step forward one step? You're killing me. Okay, is there somewhere else I can stick these things? There is. Okay, so the thing I specifically want is I want the show variable to be in the global table. And so I should be able to come on into main and do that. So where do we include settings? Doesn't have to be the whole word. Thank you. Okay, so right here, I want G show equals a table. And then in theory, that lookup should resolve here, and I will not need to also declare it there. And we're going to know right quick because this will not load in its current configuration without those being in the global table. Okay, so kill that. Kill that, and this as well. Awesome. So if I have this right, TitanBar should still load, fingers crossed. Excellent. And when we come in and check out our local changes, we can see that there are no... Sure need to save main, don't I? Yes. Well, let's try loading TitanBar one more time. Okay. But we can see that the changes are in main, but not in settings. That should mean that when we move forward here, yes, now source control can just say, oh, that file is not getting changed. I can apply these other changes without having to think about it. Cool. So we're going to use a loop instead of manually initializing the variables for each. Now, just in case, we're going to go reset the plugin data and reload TitanBar. And do it all over again. Let's activate Destiny on interesting. I'd say it didn't work. Okay, a new plan. After we include settings, we should be able to do the opposite. Stick these in to global. Okay, let's give that a try. So instead, great. Now, we still need to replicate the specifics. These windows being backwards are really weirding me out. Great. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and copy that over. Great. Now they're in the same order as they are chronologically on my taskbar, which was the thing that was weirding me out. We're going to go ahead and load TitanBar back in. Telegram points out that a few years ago, SSG reset passwords on dormant accounts. So if you cannot get in, for instance, with an email password reset kind of thing, you may need to just contact customer support, in which case, good luck. They have a process to follow. All right, Destiny points. On toolbar. Okay, everything's working fine now. That workaround will be good enough for my purposes. So we can once again see the changes in main, but it puts things where it needs to be. So we're going to go ahead and clear that. I was really expecting it to be something. Let's go ahead and move forward into the final loops here that we're looking at. So I've moved forward about 4 steps because I'd like to roll out all of these together if none of them are the problem. All right, so wallet, Destiny, on TitanBar, none of them were the problem. The T asks, are those board games in the background? If you're asking if those are board games in the background over there, the answer is yes. There's also technically some behind my head. Oh, that is hard to do. There, and some smaller games that are mostly card games, but they're in the board game genre in that middle tower there. So I'd be impressed if you can read the title of any of them from here, but you might be able to recognize the images of some of them. I guess I could make it easier for a second. All right. If you're a Vital the Shadow fan, you might recognize On Mars, Kanban, or The Gallerist. Okay. So, none of those were enough to trigger this problem. Awesome. Consolidate how a color is produced. I don't think that's really going to be the problem, but we should remember the last one we did. So I'm going to make a note here. The T says, very nice looking room. Oh, thank you. This is kind of our all room. Our house follows a very common pattern that you see in Dutch row houses that were built after World War II, which will commonly have a kitchen and sort of a living room, family room, dining room thing, and that's your ground floor. Maybe there's some other stuff as well, but that's your basic ground floor. And then as you go up, first floor, second floor above that, you have bedrooms and offices and that thing. But yeah, I think it suits very well for our purposes. Okay. I wanted a place to write this that is not in Visual Studio Code. So, latest working 240426. I use loops when dealing with background colors. Awesome. Just as a note to myself as I start jumping to try to figure out where the break happens. Let's go ahead and jump forward to the next day. The first thing on the next day. Oh. Now my main is going to get messed with. Oh, and this is where we fix a few things that threw an error. So in fact, we don't even need that anymore. Okay, everything's still loading. Now we're going to go ahead and reset those save data files. The T says, you probably have more board games than all shops combined in my city. Little Redhead points out, Little Redhead also lives here. We're lucky that there's a nice board game store in the nearby city. This collection is our pared down version from before we moved here from the United States. It's true. We left a lot behind, but a lot of them were games that we owned but weren't necessarily thrilled about. So some of them were easier than others to make that choice on. Some of them we kind of miss now. Okay. It's still fine. Everything's working. So, but we're past the point in time where that change was needed. I probably just should have jumped there instead of worrying about it all this time. So we're going to go ahead and delete that. And, okay. Just record that. Let me know if the music is coming through too loudly. On my speakers, it's fine, but I know the streaming software can pick it up much better. 5, 14. Okay. No, wait. 426. Great. Okay. Changed keys for currency and tooltip translations? I don't think so. Consolidated update X functions? Yeah, that could do it. So let's go ahead and just move forward one at a time here, because I think we're coming up on some dicier changes. Nope. Don't press the escape key if you don't mean to. Okay. Consolidated update X functions. Great. Let's check those out. That's it. Okay. Would you like to give an offer for the house, which is a card that only exists in the dreams? I think we have modified this house significantly to accommodate our cats. I think it will be quite a while before we're like, oh yeah, we should definitely move. I feel like historically that break even point has been like 4 to 6 years, and then it's like, oh man, moving's not that bad. It is, but you forget, right? But the cats and the modifications we've done are probably going to give an extra life to this place. So I don't think it's going to be anytime soon before we're like, oh yeah, moving is not a terrible idea. And part of it is we have accumulated extra things since the last place we lived, because this place has more place to put things. So moving's gotten harder than it was to get into this place in the first place. Okay, so we identified the change that was the problem, and that is the consolidated update X functions. Awesome. Now let's figure out what I broke. All right, actual problem exists in commit 2024 04 27 01 40. I mean, there's your problem. I was doing code after midnight. Okay, so this commit is 3 different files together. And what we're going to see is that it's a consolidation of a bunch of functions called update blah, and the usage of those functions. And it looks like we have an extra lookup table. So what we want to do is figure out what broke for Destiny to start with and extrapolate out from there. Okay, so we have an update Destiny points. If the location of that is 1, then we want to set the text and size and adjust the icon. Cool. Sounds straightforward enough. So in a lot of these places, let's align that with the top here. Great. So we have an update currency. And we can see right away there's some extra code in here. Let's get some debug code into update Destiny points on the left here. So we're going to step on back in time and then come on in to this location, which was in functions.lua. So what we would really like to have is turbine.shell.writeLine, and we want to say where we are, and we want to spit out some basic information. Do we have a dump function yet? We do not. Well, that's okay. So, where? And what was the thing that got replaced with? That was show. I'm also interested in show. Oh, but I'll need to know what key was. Update currency. It's probably going to be Destiny points. Okay, so we want to go ahead and see what the result of that is. Now, the lack of a dump function is sad because if any of these values are null or numbers, then they don't get concatenated very nicely. But we'll start with this. Hey, look at that. Attempt to concatenate a Boolean value. This is why we need that function. So I'm just going to go ahead and lift it from something else. Plugins, Cube plugins, Indeed tracker, general functions. And in here, we're going to steal that. And we're going to pop that into main on the hope that that is a reasonable place for it. Yep, okay. So we're going to go ahead and dump out where destiny points. I'm sorry, numbers probably do concatenate properly. It's probably booleans that do not. Okay. Oh, hilarious. Okay, so we're getting output, and we would like to surround that with quotes of some sort. Double quotes, single quotes, just something to isolate any white space that is difficult to see otherwise. Okay, so we're seeing where 1. And what we're saying is if where equals 1, then do stuff. Okay, that's fine. Let's go ahead and reset those save files so that where is 3, which is not displayed. And come on in to destiny point, and we're going to go and set that on and save. Okay, that's interesting. So we're seeing where is being set to 1, but show is not yet true. The T says, what is your favorite scene from Lord of the Rings? If we're talking the movies, the Peter Jackson movies specifically. Thank you. Voice in my ear reminding me to be specific. I love the combination of visuals and audios when Denethor has sent out Faramir to ride against Osgiliath to try to retake it in a nonsensical attempt to reassert the authority of Gondor where it is clearly broken. And he has Pippin singing him a song from the Shire. And that juxtaposition of Denethor's eating and Pippin singing and Faramir charging is, yeah, it really gets to me. Agartha says the squirty tomato scenes. Yeah, the squirty tomato scenes. The scene which contrasts Denethor's messy, gluttonous eating with his equally messy use of his soldiers, his careless approach to governance. I was watching a video recently that was talking about that scene, and they were saying, there's symbolism here. In some ways, it's a little bit too on the nose. But yeah, it's something about that and Pippin singing, contrasting it all. Yeah, it's lovely. In general, I love the adherence of most of what happens in the first movie with what happens in the books. And as Peter Jackson goes on, he has to, well, I don't know, has to. He chooses to deviate a little bit more as the story goes on for each film. But yeah, if I had to call it something from one of the later movies that speaks to me, I really like that one. But yes, like Arthur, the squirty tomatoes scene. The breaking of bones scene. And he says, great choice. Mine are Theoden's speech in Pelennor Fields and the departure of Boromir. Yeah. Really, I mean, I'm a sucker for most of the scenes with Aragorn in them. Even something simple as him breaking his toe, like he steals the show. Okay, so we have uncovered where the disconnect is. There are two variables here, where the thing is and is it visible, and they're kind of conflated. They don't need to both exist, and the fact that they can be in different states here shows that we have a problem with our assumptions. And so all of this stuff that should have activated because the where is equal to 1 wasn't activating because the replacement assumed that we should not be doing any of this if show is false. Now, why did we make that assumption? That's actually a really good question. One of the problems with my approach to doing this so far has been that in the code, we tend to encounter wallet and money first. And those are the two things that have the most exceptions when it comes to how wallet items are handled. And so we tend to be building these functions addressing those weirdnesses and then kind of maybe over-engineering it for the other 25 or so items. So for these, we have update destiny, shards, marks, mithril, Yule. All of these are the same. All of these are the same. All of these are the same. So what's different? What's different? Nope, and not Amroth. Where? It's entirely possible I just wrote this incorrectly and should not have entered this. This was an incorrect refactoring where I added intent that wasn't there. Now, why did I do that? Maybe there were places that assumed this. So let's come take a look at functions ctr.lua. We have, instead of update destiny points, we have update currency destiny points. Cool. That's in the callback there. That's also in this function, and that's if the where is not equal 3. Okay, we are not looking at the show. Okay, coming on down here, lots of the same stuff. Update currency. This is the problem. The update currency. There's an update currency function, which was dispatching to all of these other update functions, and we're replacing it with this other update currency. And I think this was the problem, is if you were calling update currency before, then it was checking the show value. But if you were not calling update currency, if you were calling one of these other things, then that proceeded regardless of show. So let's make sure we're stepped back in history. We are. And let's come on in here and look for update destiny. Okay, function update destiny points. We want to find all uses of this. And we can see import control. In the import control, explicitly, when we're importing the control, we are calling update destiny points directly. And well, that's really weird. Where is that other function? Down below, what's going on here? Update currency. And this is when loading the wallet. When the quantity is changed, we want to go ahead and, if the thing is being shown, then we want to update that. I'm not even sure that logic is true. If the thing is loaded, we want to. And by definition, if we have a callback, it's probably loaded. But we can see in update currency, we didn't actually have a destiny function. Fantastic. This is a bit of a unifying thing. It is possible that the wallet doesn't have? No, destiny points changed. Okay. Fantastic. So, only in that one case, only in the case of update currency, which is being called when we're loading the wallet, are these calls checked with a show? Certainly not when we're loading the control. So I made a fundamental mistake of how this was getting changed. I added a check for show in between all those other places. But if we come take a look at this update here, where does the show get updated? Like show destiny points. Cool, we have some setting it to default values, why not? Okay, some of that. Don't care about that. We're checking it, we're checking it, we're checking it. More checking it. So where does this get equal to something? It gets set to false. Show hide currency. Let's go take a look at show hide currency. Okay, in show hide currency, I would imagine show equals not show. Great. Okay, where does show hide currency? Yeah. Destiny. So we can see unloading control has some stuff. When we're clicking to save, show hide currency. Oh, that's painful. If this, then if we're not showing it, then call show hide destiny. Else, if this, then show hide currency. There's got to be a nicer way to write that. Maybe I did that. Okay. So in the unloading of the control, we have something. What I don't know about the loading the control. Okay, so we have a basic sense of what went wrong. And in this update currency function, so it's in here. So really, this is in load player wallet. What we want to do is in functions control.lua line 800-ish and load player wallet. Add check to show cur name. Double check this parameter before calling update currency. Okay, so that's really the thing right there. So that's functions control. Update currency, that's going away. In here, yeah, we're going to be going ahead and adding that check to is it shown, and then that'll be fine. That should actually fix the problem. Fingers crossed. The T says, may I ask how frequently players give feedback to you about a plugin you built a long time ago? So how much player interaction there is on a plugin kind of depends on the nature of the plugin. TitanBar is not originally written by me, but has had maybe 4 to 5 authors throughout the years trying to maintain it. TitanBar, the way it was originally designed, makes it really difficult to add new things. In this case, we're talking about new wallet currencies. One of the things that can be sitting in your wallet. It's really difficult to add one of these. Just be like, I want to track marigolds. Good luck. You've got about a half hour of work in front of you, and a lot of it's just copy-paste with little tweaks. So that's what we're trying to fix here on the stream today. The deed tracker plugin is constantly out of date because SSG keeps bringing out new deeds for LOTRO, which is nice, but it means that that kind of a plugin that is data-driven about the state of the world means that as the world changes, those plugins get out of date. But other plugins, like Waypoint, haven't needed to change in a decade. So how many requests there are for updates, it kind of depends on the nature of the plugin and also how many people just use the plugin. Sometimes there's plugins that have 7 users, so there's just not a lot of activity on that plugin. And some of them are used by so many players. Delirian answered, currently I'm checking an unadministered plugin many people still use. If I recall, he just has 2 main plugins he's developing and maintaining, Festival Buddy 2 and Deed Tracker. Julian says, well, Waypoint, I remember a change in the LOC command. Absolutely, but that doesn't happen very often. So for the curious, if one goes over to LOTROinterface.com, where'd my browser go? There it goes. LOTROinterface.com, you can find the list of B4's interfaces over there. And technically, these are all the ones that I have published, so if I'm going to sort them by date. So the recent ones I have published updates for Festival Buddy 2, Deed Tracker, Minstrel Buff 2. Doesn't get a lot of love from me, but technically I am the maintainer of Minstrel Buff 2. Festival Buddy Extended Support kind of needs to retire, but it's still there in case anyone just doesn't want to use the new Festival Buddy. The old Minstrel Buff's Out of Combat patch also needs to go away. And then the Opaque Quest Tracker, I haven't gotten a lot of feedback from it. It's such a simple plugin, but some people really like to use it. Apparently 20,000 people have, well, there have been 20,000 downloads. That was a TitanBar patch, funny. 100 of the decoy, with 11,000 decoy downloads, which blows my mind. And an update for Rich, but I have more updates for Rich that I want to do. So the Opaque Quest Tracker is one of those things that's it's dead simple. There's a box, you can move it, you can resize it, you can lock it in place, and it makes it easier to read your quests. Done. I've gotten very little in the way of feedback on that, but it's also what I would call feature complete. Yeah, someone asked, hey, how do I do a thing? I said, here's how you do the thing, right? But there's not a lot of need for changes for that, and so there's not a lot of people saying, oh, please add this feature. Hey, Arthur says, some plugins have loadable configs, so even if the game changes, the core code may not need to change. Yeah, really, how resilient a plugin is to kind of degrading over time is really just how volatile are the places in the API that they're using. And some of those have changed more than others over time. Okay, great question though, thank you. Okay, so we have a path forward. So let's go ahead and unload the plugin, reset that data so we can do this again. And we're going to go ahead and step forward all the way to the present. We're gonna be confident. Of course there's a thingamajiggy. Yeah, we can abort that. That's fine. Okay, so we are in the present. Welcome. So we're going to double check that the problem still exists. All right, so Destiny on toolbar, and we can see the problem is there. So we're going to go ahead and reset the plugin data. Great. We're going to come on in to the code and look at our notes of what we're going to do. So not that. In functions control around line 100-ish in the load player wallet, well, that changed a lot. We want to check show. So if show key, then update currency and end. And in fact, I think at this point we need some new pagination. So adding a callback, player currency, currency name, quantity changed, this goes into new line, then update currency, end. Great. So let's go ahead and load TitanBar and see how it likes the code. Awesome, no syntax errors. So let's go ahead and come back into Destiny points and put it on the TitanBar. Okay, awesome. Still have a problem. Oh, we forgot to remove the show check from the real area of issue. All right, so in functions, I want to say, what? Why do you have all that white space? That's so weird. There we go. So in here, we're going to kill the check for show. This is not the place for that. Okay. Did I fix the save file? We're going to find out. All right. So, Destiny points. Nope. And on TitanBar. Hey! Okay. I am so glad that was fixable and not some fundamental problem with what I was doing. Okay, so we have stepped backwards in time, found the exact commit that caused the problem, used the small amount of changes that happened to isolate what was probably wrong, and implemented a fix. Awesome. Let's save our changes. So, moved check of show to correct location. Fixes bug with freshly loaded control not initialized properly. Now, one might say that the fact that this control needed that particular line of code, the update currency code, to run, I don't know, I mean, it's a fine... It is weird to me that the control itself outsourced the setting up of the control somewhere else. But whatever, it's the nature of it, so we're going to go ahead and run with it. Commit both of those. Nope. And we're good. Awesome. We can actually see there's a couple of unpushed changes here. We're going to go ahead and do that. What was that? Maintenance file updates, right? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So, that was actually a fix for something, so we should have mentioned it in the to-do file. So, problem seen. Might actually be here. Let's go ahead and apply that stash. And then we can come into the to-do. All right, moving money tooltips that stay behind. Okay, don't need to worry about that. Loading currencies results in an incorrect icon and no number. All right, yes. So we're going to go ahead and first commit this to do file changes. Anything else going on in there? Okay, cool. And then we'll go ahead and commit that change. Fixed to do file entry fixed in previous commit. Cool. So what's going on with some of the stuff there? Well, let's go ahead and unload first and load. Great. Before we dig into some of the changes I was working on between streams, I want to go back into the to-do file here and see if there were other bugs or things that I wanted to have in mind. Next thing to work on. Okay. Cool. Move money to tooltip. Stay behind on bar as well until reload. Cool. Let's check that. Okay. On here, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and just reload. All right. Money in tooltip. Okay, it did disappear. But one thing we want to do is just completely delete the save file and start from there. And come on in to the wallet and move money into the tooltip from there. Yeah, okay. So we can see that that is a problem here. The question is, has that always been a problem? Answer, almost certainly not. This is almost certainly a problem that I caused. But let's go ahead and stash this. Changes since last stream. And let's go ahead and replicate kind of the same thing that we were just doing. We're going to go ahead and bounce back to 135.30. So this is just what you would get if you downloaded it from LOTRO interface right now. And we want to go ahead. It made sure to load it correctly. We're just going to delete that same save file and start from scratch. So, activate wallet. Just move it out here for convenience. Go into money and say it's in tooltip. Now, I'm a little confused because when there was no save file and I loaded, that looks different. And that to me says I've broken something else. The default position when there is no save file is different in live version versus my version. And I can demonstrate what that is by just coming on in here, deleting that, moving us back to current, and we can even push those. And same thing, we're just going to load this on up with no save file. And we can see things are clustered together on the left. So we have two problems. The money is not disappearing properly, and we're not getting default locations properly. And maybe they're related, I'm not sure about that. Okay, so first thing is first is if we can go back to that fixed a few items that throw an error, it'd be nice to know if it was before this or after this. We're going to learn from our previous mistake. So, no save file, load TitanBar, what happens? It's before it, which is a little disappointing because that causes problems. But that's okay. we're going to come on down and move wallet controls into their own directory. Let's start with that. Okay, not broken at that point. Yay. Moved an easy file, don't think so. Moved code comment, nope. Took first step in parameterizing global variables. Yep, this is probably what we're talking about. And this is where we're going to need to get that change going. So, not menu, main. And we also want to come into settings. So we added a couple of these things here. Yes. We're going to go ahead and come into main. After settings, we're going to go ahead and say g.show equals show, g.bc equals bc, g.position equals position, g.position w equals position w. And I don't have the where yet, but we're going to need it. Let's see if this loads. Okay, everything's in the right position, but I don't remember if I deleted the save file, so we'll do it one more time. Okay, everything is still fine at this point. So, where can we go? Parameterized money settings. Well, we're definitely talking about money here, so that seems like a good next place to go. Okay, that was not enough to break it. You know, I say that, but let's check both of these problems. Okay, so if we come into wallet and set money to be in tooltip, we don't have that problem yet either. So delete and move forward. Let's go ahead, move forward to simplified variable initialization. And see if by simplified we mean broken. Yeah, that'll do it. Okay, so let's check if this is also where the wallet was issue was introduced, or the money tooltip, I should say. And yes, it is. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, so all of the issues that we're seeing come from a single commit set. That's great. And so we can see it was right here. Okay. So, in this change, something went wrong. And that's fine. We're going to figure out what. Right. Before I get too into it, I'm realizing that I would like a better sense of what, if anything, is being affected here. I think it's just the money control. So I'm going to use the snipping tool in Windows to go ahead and just grab that little screenshot here. And then we're going to go ahead and, same thing, delete that setting file, step one, step forward in time, and come back in and reload the plugin. Okay, so I would say that it really is just the money control. And if we can just grab that and move that out of there, the rest of this should look the same. Equipment, yep, that, okay, yeah. It is just the money control that makes it look like everything is there. So that's the first thing. And for that, there's a very obvious problem, which is I didn't realize that some of these initializations have different default values. We can see wallet has all of these values. And we can see Destiny Points uses all of these values. But money has a different X position on TitanBar, of course, and a different show value. And so what we need is in our initialization, we need an, if this is money, then we have different, a couple different values. Okay, so in this here, what is this commit? Great. Actual alright, cool. That one's done. In this commit, default position, yep. Instead of TX for money. And then what else? All of that's fine. And the default where should be 1. I think actually that's accounted for. So for money, where should be 1. And that'll definitely fix something. Now we have the other problem of why didn't the saving, sorry, why didn't the moving from the one place to the other do this correctly? And we're going to come back to that. Okay, so let's move back in time. We'll unload this, reset our save file, and then what we want to do is we want to, in settings, not really. Where did I put that? Silvador says, "Are you a computer programmer? On my good days, yes. Yes, I am. Yeah, my day job, I'm a software engineer. And in my spare time, I like to play Lord of the Rings Online and other games. And I like to sometimes make or improve plugins for these games. Okay, so in here, okay, so we're looking for key. In X, we could then have an exception for money here. If key equals money, then else take this line here. And so what we want to do is have the actual 400. Now, it might be reasonable to have a lookup table for each key that if the entry isn't there, then you default to the actual defaults here, and if the entry is there, then you use that instead. I don't think I'm going to worry about that right now, but that's what I would prefer to do that. Sylvander asks, what language is this? This is the Lua programming language. And so you can find a reference to Lua over at lua.org. The version that is embedded in Lord of the Rings Online is Lua 5.1, though technically it's a subset of that, because there are some things that Lua can do that you cannot do in a plugin that you're writing for Lord of the Rings Online. For instance, you are not allowed to arbitrarily read and write files in the LOTRO Lua. You can only read and write files from the program, the plugin data directory, specific locations in there. If Lua allowed you to open up a web connection to some website and transfer information, you can't do that in LOTRO. So just some places where you're a little bit more constrained. But in general, if you can do a basic stuff in Lua 5.1, you can probably do it in LOTRO's Lua. Okay, I'm using Visual Studio Code, which is a free IDE, integrated development environment, that you can download at Microsoft's website. And within it, I am using the LOTRO API extension written by community member Lunarwater. And that itself uses the Lua extension for things like syntax highlighting. And so you get both syntax highlighting and you get knowledge of the LOTRO API wrapped up in that. Okay, so if money, then do something. Now, we already had a if key equals money, then value equals 1 under the where. So we probably have what we need in order to move forward. So let's go ahead and make sure our data is deleted. It is. Go ahead and load TitanBar here. Sylvander says, definitely sounds like something you need a college degree for. Yikes. I would say that a college degree isn't strictly necessary for doing what we're doing right here, writing some code to make a plugin work or work better. I will say that I think a college degree in computer sciences was very useful in changing how I think about computers and how I think about writing software. So I don't think it was mandatory. I think I could have learned those things other places, but let's be frank, I probably wasn't going to force myself to read a discrete mathematics textbook on my own. I probably wasn't going to go through an automata course on my own. I probably wasn't going to spend that much time in computer algorithms, in an algorithms class. You know, those were the less fun part. The fun parts of the degree were easy to sink your teeth into. The less fun parts, I think, were still valuable in the ways that they changed my brain, but I probably wouldn't have forced myself to go through them if I wasn't getting a grade for them, you know? Sylvander says, you were writing programs before college. I was fortunate enough that my high school in the United States had a computer department, and so they had basic learn how to use a computer course called, I think it was just like computer applications. Basic things like learn how to use a word processor, learn what a spreadsheet is, kind of things. What's a mail merge? Things that I think are still very useful. Like I use mail merges in my adult life much more than my high school self ever thought I was going to. But in this case, instead of printing out labels for envelopes, it's more like sending out emails to multiple people. But basically, the concept is still the same. Lord Zach says, hello. Hey, Lord Zach, welcome. So after doing that, my high school also had courses in BASIC and courses in C++ that you could take. And looking back on it, these were pretty introductory programming courses. They were very accessible. They probably could have been more accessible. Like the people who were doing those courses were already really obsessed with computers in some way. But yeah, like if you're trying to learn C++ at a high school level, you're only going to learn how to do so much before you just run out of time and the school year ends. But it was a good start, so that when I went to university, I wasn't learning how to do a program for the first time. There's a lot more resources now that are easily available to do things like just download Python, download Lua, download Visual Studio Code, and start writing something in C#, following web tutorials. A lot of that wasn't readily available back in the last century. So, yeah, I don't think you need a university degree specifically to do what we're doing here, writing plugins, modifying plugins. But anyone out there who's thinking, oh, I wonder if a university degree would help me, certainly if you want to get a job in the field of software engineering in many countries, and the United States is one of these, your resume is probably going to have an easier time getting someone's attention if you have a college degree attached to it. Your mileage may vary on that, but a lot of places definitely have that prejudice that between two competing applicants, all else being equal, if one of them has a university degree and one of them does not, they'll probably go for the university degree. And there's a whole separate discussion on whether that's fair or not, but that last time I was in the job market in the United States, that was generally the case. And so if you want to go into a career in computer science and programming for some company, that could be a useful path to go. If you're an entrepreneur type person and you have enough skills in the field that you feel like you don't need university, hey, if people are buying your product, they're probably not going to be asking, oh, and where did you go to university? Right? They either buy it or they don't. But Zach says, I just have college. Now, so, yeah, I think if you do go the university route, I would encourage people not to go too heavy into the tech stuff. It's useful to have a more well-rounded education, even though those parts, for me, weren't as fun. Like, the literature courses, the non-computer science, non-math, non-sciencey courses, they weren't fun in and of the moment. But it's not always about having fun. It's about changing the physical structure of your brain in a way that is useful. And you won't always know how that's going to be useful until years or decades later. But I would say now, with the benefit of hindsight, that having those non-mathy, non-computer sciencey classes were valuable. At least that's what the current state of my brain tells me, but it could be biased in the fact that it had to do the things. So, your mileage may again vary. Okay, so we have loaded things up, and money's in the correct position. I can't remember if we did this correctly, though, so we're just going to redo this. Okay, so money is in the correct location. Awesome. Agartha says, and I'm not sure if this is tongue-in-cheek or not, my philosophy degree has been super useful in my IT career. I could actually see it either way. So if that is a serious comment that is humorous to say in retrospect, I totally buy it. If you in fact do not believe it's been useful, well, I'm sorry to hear that. There was a thing that comes to mind, and this isn't directly relevant to the job, but I was talking with a coworker whose education definitely had been more focused on technical stuff and maybe didn't have quite as broad of a exposure to literature or whatever. And he was talking about someone who was making a reference to a modest proposal. And, oh man, I'm going to forget who wrote that. Hang on. Modest proposal. Help me, internet. Swift? Yeah, Swift. Penleaf also Swift. Yeah, Jonathan Swift. And Edgar also. Yeah, so a column or someone was making reference to a modest proposal and had the phrase in there, eating babies. And my coworker, who had just never been exposed to a modest proposal, just assumed that was a typo for beating babies, which is still bad, right? You don't want to go around beating babies or eating babies. But it was just, in casual conversation, and it's fine. Like, he's a nice person, and he definitely has a lot of technical skills. But it was just it stood out to me as you know, he would not have made that mistake if his education had been just slightly broader, right? And it's fine. It's not a huge mistake, but it just sticks in my mind as that is the kind of thing that can happen if you perhaps over specialize in technical stuff, or just your coursework doesn't cover this one satirical essay from 1729, right? Like, what are you going to do? For those who aren't familiar, A Modest Proposal was a satirical essay by Jonathan Swift. A modest proposal for preventing the children of poor people from being a burden to their parents or country, and for making them beneficial to the public. And it does satirically suggest we just eat them. But it's been a long time since I've actually read it. So... Captain Awesome says, I didn't go to college or university, worked out pretty well, running a firm in IT after 8 years of consulting in AI. So always if education works, whatever one prefers. Yeah, it's really just a question of if you are trying to be able to be hireable by firms that are looking for specific requirements on your resume, then that's going to inform what approach you take. If you're looking to go work for a Microsoft or an Amazon or a Google or one of those large corporations, my guess is now, at least it was the last time I was looking at such things, is that all else being equal, they're going to go for the person with the college degree. And that's not necessarily a good way to do it, but if you're a company that gets thousands or tens of thousands of applications each year, that is a way to sort them into buckets. Has a degree, doesn't have a degree. And having a degree doesn't necessarily mean you're smarter than someone who doesn't have a degree. It does suggest that you're willing to sit through a large amount of stuff that maybe you would prefer not to be doing in the moment, and are able to buckle down on longer term, medium to longer term projects, maybe. But it's so variable because... universities, I don't know what the accreditation process is, but from what it sounds like, there can be a lot of variability between what, a computer science course looks like at my university versus yours, or what a literature course looks like at mine versus yours. So it can give a recruiter a little bit of information, like, cool, you stuck with a thing for at least 4 years and made possibly some bad choices about financing along the way, but you stuck with it, right? So it's a piece of information. Like, if you did well with your grades, then you were probably able to read and comprehend the assignment and produce something similar to what was requested of you, and also were able to retain information long enough if there were tests to spit it back out in tests. Like, these kind of correlate to things you might need in a corporate world, where a boss comes to you and says, I need you to make a blue widget, and they need to trust that you're going to be able to make a blue widget. Or at the very least, a widget that is bluish, right? So it's a proxy, right? It's a shortcut for, we have 10,000 resumes, and we would like to have only 5,000 to consider. Okay, just scrap everything that doesn't have a degree, and then focus on the next thing that we can use to weed through this into a manageable bunch. And it kind of sucks. But they can't exactly do a 5-hour interview with every applicant to determine did they do just fine with their education without going through a formal process. So, I don't know. Anyway, let's go ahead and find out if the next problem has just magically been solved, which is, let's go ahead and move money into tooltip. And we can see it did go into the tooltip, but it's still sitting here on the toolbar. So something else is not quite working. And we know that something has to do with this latest change, because it worked fine over here. Okay. Let's go ahead and... Oh, we don't need that. Let's go ahead and stash this for a second. Temp. Okay. Oops. We're going to move step back one step through time. Great. And we're going to go ahead and demonstrate the problem. Unload. Somehow I pressed escape here. Not great. And delete that. Okay, coming back in. Kulovich says, they need AI to do the sorting of resumes now. Well, the problem with using AIs to do anything is that modern neural network style backpropagation trained AI networks are really bad at telling you why they made a decision. So if they exclude candidate A and you were to try to query and be like, why did you exclude candidate A? It's very difficult for an AI to tell you why that happened. It's very difficult for an AI person to go in and interrogate that. I'm speaking in broad strokes because I'm not an AI person specifically, but this is what I've heard and this is what I understand from my limited coursework on the subject. So if you are dealing with AI all the time, feel free to correct me here. But if you were to go to this AI sorting program and say, hey, you excluded candidates A, B, and C. Why did you do that? Getting a reasonable answer out of them is tricky. And that's a problem if there's implicit biases in their training material that mean that fundamentally they excluded them because the names sounded black, for instance, which is a real problem. Or they excluded them because the names sounded female. And if you have biases in your training data that result in AI making decisions like that you can't interrogate, you can't second guess, and you don't even realize is happening because the computer just made that choice. We don't know why. It doesn't... It's not good. And so complicated AI that can't be interrogated along these lines runs you the risk of making bad choices in bulk instead of one at a time. So automating the process of making racist decisions or sexist decisions or that isn't actually an improvement other than you've just done bad things faster. So you've got to be very careful with the training data for these kinds of things. And you've got to be careful with testing it to verify that this is not happening. And knowing, how do you know if it's happening or not? So I don't envy people who are in that field the job because modern AI systems need an incredibly large amount of data to fine-tune their networks so that they are producing reasonable results most of the time, so that you could actually trust them with the job. But if your input data that you train them on is 1 million resumes, and I forget the name of it, the secondary set of data that you use to test it on to see how good is it training, that's another 1 million resumes, which human walked through that data to sort of get a sense of what's, is the output of this thing actually, are these million correctly sorted resumes, are they actually correctly sorted? Who sorted those? What are their biases, implicit or explicit? So it's a huge amount of work. Yeah, Agartha says AI isn't a good fit for highly regulated activities as a research on explainable AI, but it's still in its nascency. You can talk to large language models like ChatGPT and be like, why did you tell me this? And it will give you an explanation, but that explanation can be just as much of a hallucination as the thing it told you in the first place. Now, if it's effectively screen scraped a help document from Microsoft's website on how to write a C# program, then maybe it's going to be able to spit that back out too. But I wouldn't trust a large language model's explanation for why it told you something any more than I would trust what it told you at this point. Time will tell on that. Some things can be automatable with AI, but at this point, but you really kind of need a human who knows whether or not the AI is correct to go through and look at it. Like, I could have a large language model write a basic LOTRO plugin that looks at chat, and if the following string appears in chat, then print out the line, I found it, right? And a large language model can write that kind of a basic program. But it can also equally hallucinate things in the LOTRO API that aren't even in there, but should be in there. Like there's ways to look at your inventory. There's not ways to look at your quest log, but a large language model will extrapolate, oh, you can look at the inventory. Of course you can look at the quest log. And if you don't have the ability to judge whether or not the output is correct, then you have a problem. And if you do have the ability to judge whether the output was correct or not, it's probably because you could have written the output. So we're not there. We're not quite there for a lot of tasks, it feels like. If you're an AI researcher and you're 10 years ahead of what's commonly available to us lay people, then yeah, your experience may be very different. Pamela LL says, it's sort of like the arts. Your passion, experience, and skill can substitute for a degree. You can't do that with law. That's an interesting point. It is probably technically possible to pass a bar and an ethics board in a state in the United States without having a law degree, but you've probably made it really hard for yourself. But if you do pass the bar and if you pass your ethics board, you better hope you're going into business for yourself, because you're probably not going to find a law firm that would want to hire you without a law degree. But I haven't ever looked into it, but I would assume that having a degree isn't actually a prerequisite for the bar, except in the sense that if you haven't done everything it takes to get a degree, you're probably not going to do very well on the bar unless you are an outlier on the bell curve of ability. Yeah, I've known a couple of people who have gone through the law school process, and it sounds horrific. I'm certainly glad I didn't do it, although some parts of it sounded fun. Like on the outside, dissecting case law sounds probably a lot more fun than it actually is, or just memorizing different points of different points of trial law or whatever. But yeah, just the minutia of it. Some of that might be really well suited to a large language model, like initial research for finding case law. But there are real world examples of people who call themselves lawyers using a large language model to write their court documents, and it does not go well for them. Okay. That being said, let's look at some code. Okay, so what's going on here? Why is the thing that we're doing wrong? It is wrong in the head. Why is that? Let's go ahead and make this window bigger, actually. Okay, so we have two functions, initialize the settings and initialize the global stuff. And let's go over to money and step by step kind of walk through and make sure we're not missing anything else. So v equals true. Is that actually, hang on. Okay, so our default has v equals false. Do we remember what v equals false is? That is the show value. Oh yeah, okay, that would do it. So the default value for that is false, and we can see v equals false there. We can see v equals false here, v equals false here, v equals true. And this is another problem where we have a where variable, which is it being shown in the tooltip or not at all, and where and a shown true or false. And that's because the wallet entries have this third thing that can be not just visible or not visible, but visible in a tooltip. And this is just a problem. Whenever you have a Boolean variable, there's a high probability that eventually you will want a third option. Is this thing visible or not? Yes, no, tooltip, right? True, false, tooltip. That's your Boolean value right there. And so they had to introduce a second parallel value that needs to stay in sync. Not only do we have is it visible or not, but if it is it visible on the bar or in a tooltip? Just whenever you're thinking, I could use a Boolean variable here, just be like, am I really sure there's never going to be a third option? And then if you say, yes, I'm really sure, yeah, on a long enough timeline, you're still wrong. But you know, if you are correct for the next 5 years, then maybe it becomes someone else's problem. Okay, so we can see that the V is a problem here. So let's go ahead and unload this. Make sure I know where I am. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go forward here. We're going to go ahead and apply that because I misspelled temp. And we want to set V to a specific thing. So V then, if key equals money, then we're going to go ahead and bring this in, else true. So these exceptions are just killing me, and we're gonna make them better. But first, we need to make them make this work just as is. So, okay, so turn on the wallet. We're gonna go ahead and set money to be in tooltip, and it's gone. And this is because the show hide function that we saw earlier is being used to toggle the visibility, which is to say, if I say hide the thing, the code as it's currently written doesn't go and set this thing to false. It says, oh, we'll toggle it from its current state because I think the current state is true. Which means this right here, that initial setting was wrong. And so when we toggled this, it went into both tooltip and then it was also shown. So it was in both places, which is, that's just not right. Okay, but that was a working fix for this, and that's great. So what we need is, Yost says, hello before, I see you're doing the work no one else dared to do. I wouldn't say I'm the only person who's dared to do this, but there's a lot of subtleties at play here, and it's really easy for the task to balloon. Like, we have introduced here a global a table for background. So all of these variables for background X and background Y and background Z are now just entries in this table. But there's a bunch of possible things you could add to that are not wallet currencies. All the other controls also have these things. So I'm trying to keep very laser focused on if it doesn't involve currencies, I'm not touching it for right now. With the thought that I will come back and touch it later, but I just can't deal with it right now. But it's so easy to let the scope creep and creep and creep, and eventually just are rewriting the whole thing, and that is really hard to maintain because it just gets there's more and more. There's so many things I want to rewrite in TitanBar or change or fix or whatever, and you just can't do it. You have to keep focused, and I'm not even sure I get to call myself focused on this project, but. You have to pick your battles, and my battles here is currencies. But I was just thinking today, it's like I could fix reputation. Like I could add more reputation factions to this so easily because I want to add paths of valor. I want to add paths of valor so much, but one thing at a time. Lord Zach, I can fix her. Yes, I can fix the code, and I can, but I have to pick my battles. So. I'm definitely not the first person who's tried to tackle this, but it is so easy to get derailed or to let it get robbed. And no shame on anyone who's taken a look at this, gotten 8 hours into it and said, never mind, I can deal without it. Or just added another currency the old-fashioned way. No shame to them, no bad thoughts on them. It's I don't know, nightmare feels like an exaggeration, but yeah, it's rough. So, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Right now, we're just trying to fix bugs that I've introduced in the process, and we'll see how that goes. So, we have 2 bug fixes that we're looking at right now. We have the money's V, which is the where. Is possibly visible. And then the X position for money. And so, we need to pull both of those forward. Yost says, still listening to your stream as I am traveling for work and cannot test the new Travel Window 2 release. Getting your plugin fixed that way. I get it. Okay, so these are good changes, and what we want to do is we want to pull them forward. And so what I want to do is come on in to the code. And actually, yes, first things first, we're going to pull these forward. Not going to get distracted. And this is in this function here. And same thing with the, oh, that was the X, did I get? Yeah. And we want the same thing with the V. So we're going to pull these blocks of code. Awesome. And then we're going to go ahead and let them go here. So going into source control, we're going to just say we don't need any of these. So that is the fixing money glitch tests. We'll stash those. They're not deleted, and that's fine. All right, and we're going to go ahead and move all the way forward to present. And then we're going to come back into the code. And I didn't bother trying to pull that forward. There's just so many changes in settings. So I didn't bother trying to pull that forward. But now that we're here, we're going to go ahead and come into that function. And this is the V setting. Well, that's weird. Sorry, something went weird with my copy paste, and I don't trust what just happened, but that's why we have source control. Okay, so coming on into settings. For V, we're going to go ahead and paste that in. And same thing for the X setting. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to replace that single line with multi-line. And what we want to do is first commit this and then replace it with a parameterized version of this lookups that we can have a table that if the key is there, like default X, default V, if the key is there, then we'll use that substitute value. Otherwise, we'll use the default value. So that's what we're going to do after this. Okay, so we have no plugin data. Awesome. We're going to go ahead and load this. Very good. Money's in the right spot. We're going to go ahead and put money into a tooltip. It disappears. It's there. Awesome. We're going to put Destiny on here. Fantastic. And those were the recent bugs that we are fixing. Awesome. So, I think that addresses this. Okay. When moving money to tooltip, stay behind until reload. Yep, fixes that. Awesome. So, we're going to go ahead and do some commits. Great. Fixed initial values for money tool control. So that's that. And then we want to do better on the settings. And again, we're trying to not go too overboard, but we have some default values here. And what I think I want to do is, instead of having scalars here, I want to have tables that if there's an entry for money, we use that. Otherwise, we use a specific key like default. So we're going to go ahead and say default equals, and this is going to be the name of the key. And then we're going to go ahead and say default alpha equals a table. And in this table, we're going to say the default in there equals 0.3. I think that's what we want. Actually, I shouldn't even do this on alpha because we know it's v and we know it's x that are specifically the problem. So hang on. So default x equals, and then the default for x is 0, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, the default is 0. And then for money, it is, I want to say it was 400, but 400. Yeah. Okay. So I want to do the same thing though with default of. Oh, we don't even have a default? Okay. Default of v. And so that's, again, going to have a default of false. And for money, it is true. And the where, I think we can do that. Yep. Default where equals, and we're doing default, equals 3. And money equals 1. Great. What other things? So let's go ahead and view, split down, and comment down and look for those other exceptions. So, .v. Lord Zach says, I wish money equaled 1 million. You know, it is probably because I'm on Treebeard, but I find that I'm able to acquire money, in-game currencies, faster than I spend them. So it's just real-life currencies where I'm not having quite the same experience. Okay, V. So we want a default V. Default is false. Money is true. Cool. Okay. We want X. The default is 0. Yep. Otherwise, for money, it's 400. Where? Yep. If key equals money, then value equals 1. And otherwise, it equals 3. Great. So that is the structure that I want to use for what we're looking at. And then in here, if the setting equals nil, then settings of key dot v equals if default v of key, then settings key dot v equals default v of key, else settings key v equals default v of default. Is that stupid? If default v of key, then settings equals default v of key. Else settings key v equals default v default. That sure seems like we need a function. Get default key setting key. So we need function that and okay. So what we need is all these are separate tables. Not a fan. Let's go ahead and have default equals that. Within that, we're going to go ahead and have subtables. And each one of those is going to be yep, X, don't forget our semicolons, and where. Okay, so with a function, get default, we're going to say value equals 0. If default of setting and, then if default setting key, then value equals default setting key. And then else value equals default setting default. And then return a value. Okay, what's up with that? So let's go ahead and returns the default value for the specified setting. Setting is a string. The entry, the type of setting. For instance, VARG. Key, which is also a string. The currency in question. E.g. money, ancient script. Return any. Okay. So what we really want is settings.v equals get default of v and key. And that is it. Do we feel like that is represented here? So if default of setting, then default v setting of key, then value equals default v key. Okay. Else value equals default v default. Yeah, I feel like that is the same basic code. And then we can go ahead and put that back into a single line. So could we have, instead of this TA, this TR, this TG, could we have a get default? We could, except I haven't set up those tables yet. So we're just going to do this in the 3 places where it matters. So this is going to be get default of X and key. End. And that is gone. And then same thing here. Then settings that equals get default. Actually, for the value, get default of W and key. And we don't need to set this value to anything. TW, yep. Okay. So is that being used anymore? Find references. Yeah, probably. My goodness, that's used in more than one place. But that's probably a good idea to go through where these things are being used. So TW, final references. Okay, we've got the defaults. What about here? Okay. Yeah. We're going to leave that for right now then. Cool. Okay, same thing for V. Oh, there wasn't a default V. That's fantastic. Same thing for X. Find all references. That equals, not equals. Okay, I think that is probably fine. I think we're going to find out real fast. So, what we want to do is delete our plugin data, start from scratch, and see if those changes we just made still seem to work. Hey, we got a syntax error. So, settings 225. Yep, that'll be right here. Add argument number 2 to format number expected got nil. Yeah, that'll happen. Probably because I called it where instead of W. That'll do it. Okay, W, yeah. Hey, okay, so that is W. Cool. So this is loaded, but we do see a problem with this starting position again. So something about it's not quite working yet. Let's see if we can figure out what it is. Money for 400. So what we want to do is get the default. Turbine shell by right line. Default value for dump setting is a key. Dump is... That's unfortunate. Let's see, where did I put that file? There we go. D tracker. We'll just need to add this in. General functions, dump. I need this more often than I don't. So we're going to go to functions and add that in. And we're not going to not commit it this time. Okay, is dump of key. What? Is settings getting imported before? Oh, settings getting imported so fast. Why is settings getting imported before functions? That seems wrong. Oof. Let's assume not. In which case, can't go in there. All right, in main, the first import is TV resources, then class, then the after, color, and then settings. Oof. All right, we're just gonna put it here then. Maybe that's why I haven't imported this yet. My goodness. Okay. Alright, so we can see a default value for X for wallet is 0, for X for money is 400. I mean, that sounds good, except we're not using it. So, what's going on there? For X, if it's nil, then get default equals that. That's fine. Let's go ahead and make sure we actually are nil by deleting that and then coming back in. Cool. Cool. We actually don't care about this for anything except for money right now. So we're going to come back in and in get default, if key equals money, then spit that out. Great. Except we do, of course, need to go delete that save file. Okay, so we are not using the X for money correctly because it's not working. What's going on with that? Well, let's come see what we're doing. In the actual place, X, if settings key X equals nil, then if key is money, we're missing the string.format call. Of course. That's going to be a problem. It was actually supposed to look like this. So we need to be string format, and that's going to be get default here. And I bet we're going to actually have that same problem down on X. I was supposed to be doing that on X. I wasn't. Oh, and I just said get default. Even better. All right, settings X equals this. Calling the function and doing nothing with the return is how you mess up. Okay, so actually following the format of what we're doing. That's nice. And then TW is also in line like this. Okay, cool. And then the value up here, settings key equals whatever, settings key equals whatever. That'll do it. Okay, so we want to go ahead and delete that. Come on back in. There we go. It's in the right position. If we come bring out wallet here and set money to being in tooltip, it disappears. And destiny points, if we show them on toolbar, perfect. Excellent. Okay, so all three of those particular issues are resolved now. And we have what we hope to be a much simpler function here. At the cost of needing to make a new get default and some new tables, we now have, instead of having all of our exceptions in line here, we don't. We just say, if the setting is nil, then initialize it by calling get default. And one could imagine all of these becoming get default. Now, the string format complicates a little bit, but yeah, get default of A, get default of R, G, B, etc. So we can see all of our exceptions to the default settings have been hoisted out into a central place where a single function can look at it, which hopefully makes this a lot easier to read and reason about. And again, if we globally had get default for a thing, then we wouldn't have these variables that we're not entirely sure are being used consistently right now. But it's, again, it's a pre-existing condition. We're just going to slide on past that because that is out of scope. So what do we have here? We have a change I don't care about. We have, all right, added dump function. I'd like this to be in functions, but settings is loaded first. Actually, hang on. Before I do that, let's do this other one. Parameterized. So we are a little bit past a good stopping point for the stream here. So I'd say while I'm committing this and noodling on last minute stuff here, now's a great time to get any last minute questions, comments, concerns into chat so we can look at them before the end of the stream. But I think I'm in the winding down section of things here. Parameterized defaults for V, X, and W. All right, so we're going to hold off on that other thing I was typing. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what I did. Okay, for main, the thing that's stopping me from including this in functions is functions isn't being included pretty much first. And I think it's a reasonable question to ask, why? So add callback doesn't need, order doesn't matter. Remove callback, order doesn't matter. In fact, the sooner you get those into the namespace, the better. Round doesn't matter. Apply skin. That sounds unsettling. Where is apply skin used, if at all? Apply skin. Apply skin. It's actually used a lot of different places. I think this is an oddly named thing that's basically saying, given a tooltip window that's in the global space, because we only have a single tooltip window, use the size of that in order to put the bits and pieces around the edge. Let's take a look at that. If we go ahead and hover over here, we can see, the nice little thing in the upper left, the upper right, the lower left, the lower right, the bars, the vertical and the horizontal bars. And I'm guessing that that function is saying, look at the current size and draw these corner bits. And in fact, I'm going to say, I think that so strongly that I'm going to get rid of the top left corner. Let's bring this back. Yeah. So we can see the top left corner of the window isn't being applied at the moment. Cool. Okay, so I think that doesn't need to be there in a specific place. Create tooltip window. Cool. Show tooltip window, awesome. Update, well, I really feel like all these tooltip things might do better in a functions tooltip. That's fine. Adjust, update money, update LOTRO points, update currency, update backpack info, so many functions. Change where state, awesome. I'm not seeing update game time. There's a lot of stuff in there, but it's probably fine. Change color. We have so much more in this file. on the face of it, I don't see a reason why this could not go earlier in the import. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go ahead and load this first and just see what happens. Sometimes things just break really hard because implicit dependencies are just a part of things. Okay, so we're going to open up the wallet. We're going to say ancient script, not marks, ancient script on TitanBar, and everything seems to be working fine. So with that being said, I would like to move the dump function into functions instead of sitting in main, because that just is unsettling to see. So we're going to come out into functions, and we're actually going to put it basically first thing, because we want any other function in functions to have no problem seeing that. Though I think it would be fine if it was at the end, as long as it's in the current. Well, if it's in the current file being processed, maybe better to have it first. Hello, little one. What's up? Would you like to come be on screen? Yeah? Probably not. Wow. I know. This is Crypto, and she does not like being picked up. She's very unhappy. Doesn't like it. Thank you. Treat for being tortured. Not that many treats. I don't want you to throw up. Here, have a treat. My basic theory is that even if she doesn't like being picked up, if I give her treats after every time she is picked up, maybe she'll sort it out eventually. Okay, so adjusted import order to put functions first. I mean, the first of the plugin stuff, anyway. All right, added dump function. Great. I'm worried that I included that that debug statement without thinking about it. Let's see about that. Sure did. Let's go trim that out. Okay, so in get default, we definitely do not want that. Okay, just going to load this up one more time. Everything's working great. Let's go ahead and come on into source control. Removed debug output. Bam. Okay, so what do we have here? Today was really an exercise in a bug was introduced. As it turns out, like 4 different bugs were introduced. How do we determine what went wrong? And today's technique was using source control, we can effectively time travel. Well, that's not source control. We can effectively time travel forward and backward, isolating the exact set of changes that, when applied, caused the bug. So if we're on this commit and the bug doesn't happen, and then we move to this commit and the bug does happen, then we know that the change must be in there, as long as we're properly doing our testing. Unload the plugin, delete or restore whatever plugin data files we need. Do the time shift, load the plugin. So we're able to isolate a very specific set of changes, and this is something we can do because we're doing very granular commits with source control. We're not just committing 500 files with 10,000 changes and saying, I did stuff. We're making, hopefully, intelligent decisions about clumps of functionality to commit, so that when you find a bug between one step and the next, there's just a single thing that you were working on. It could be a broad thing. It could be a lot of different files, but it's the same intent for all of those files. For instance, What's a good one? This is a commit that touches 4 different files. But the same thing is going on in each of them. We're replacing a constant hex value with a reference to something in a table. And so, yes, this was touching 4 different files. You could technically commit each one of those in their own separate commit, but they're all the same basic idea. We're updating a number to be a variable. And it's the same variable, or the same basic thing that's happening in each one. So that's a great thing to do a commit. And if this was across 100 files, but it was the same basic change, that's fine. What you want to avoid is a bunch of different purpose changes going in together. If it was replacing this number with a variable, and if it was changing these names to be more consistent, and if it was reordering stuff here, and if it was a bunch of other things, that's where the process breaks down. That's where it's a much more difficult when you step through time like this to be like, well, it must be because of this thing. Well, there's 7 different purposes going on in this commit. That makes it really hard. So be kind to your future self. Have a single purpose for your commit, and whether that's touching 1 file or 100, as long as the purpose is a single purpose, I am doing this thing, and this is kind of the minimum set of changes related to that. Then this technique is available to you. You can move forward and backwards through time, isolate exactly when the problem was introduced, and therefore have a really good chance of figuring out why the problem was introduced. It doesn't always work. That Motes of Enchantment one that stuck, that really derailed me the last stream, I'm still not actually sure why it's broken, but sometimes all you can do is be like, well, don't do that change, and it doesn't break. But a lot of the times you can figure out exactly what went wrong, just like the 3 or 4 things we fixed here today. Oh, we generalized too much, and some of these things don't have the same initial values. Oh, we refactored the code incorrectly, and this check of a variable should only happen over here, not every time. And we're only really able to make that easily done by using source control correctly, or at least correctly is maybe too broad. Using it in a way that makes that better. So that's what I wanted to do today. I wanted to fix some bugs, but I wanted to demonstrate how you might step forward and backwards through time in order to isolate those bugs. And here we are. I'm not going to call this bug-free code, but I certainly feel much better about our progress now, pausing the development side to track down these bugs and fix them so that, as far as we know, we haven't broken anything, which is a great place to be. We haven't made things worse. Hopefully we're making them better, but we haven't made them worse. And that's a great place for us to go ahead and stop today. Not making things worse. Okay, so we have run out of time for today. So, just checking my notes. As mentioned, I think on Little Red Head's stream, upcoming. Whoops. That's the wrong page. Upcoming on the LOTRO Public Event schedule, which I think is !schedule. Nope, it's not. Well, however you make this appear. We are currently at May 14. So, tomorrow, Legendary Item Reward Track Season 10 begins. This is your reminder. If you've made any progress on your Legendary Item Reward Track on any server, please remember to press the claim button before the servers go down tomorrow for maintenance. Any unclaimed items will be vaporized by the time the servers are back up, probably. And this is a per server thing. They call it per account, but it is per server. So every server that you play on at all in the last 3 months, go double check that track. It'd be a shame to have things disappear. If you play on Treebeard, we are seeing a level cap to 100 with Gondor and Old Anorian coming out at the end of this month. That's scheduled for the 29th. That is Wednesday, 2 weeks from now. So you've got 2 weeks and a couple hours to finish up whatever you were going to do before that happens. That will bring out roving threats as well. So if you're a fan of getting murdered in the middle of the North Downs, we've got great news for you. That's going to be way more possible. And following that, Midsummer is coming up fast right after Hobnanigans. So lots of stuff coming up on the schedule. And with that, that's really what I wanted to do, is make sure I reminded people about their legendary item reward tracks. That is all we are going to cover today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. I hope to see you all here next week, and until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.